Hi guys, it's Tamara coming back at you with another video. Welcome back to my channel. I'm gonna go ahead and jump right on in because you guys already know, if you've seen my previous video, that we're gonna be talking about specific subjects relating to trauma over the next 3 to 4 weeks. So stay tuned, we're gonna be talking about quite a few things. But in this video today, the benefits for you is that you're gonna be able to learn about traumatic stress, but you're also gonna be able to learn about acute and chronic traumatic stress. And I think this is an important topic. So the benefits for you today is that you're going to be able to learn and examine what acute and chronic, traumatic stress is. I think it's important to know what it is so that you will have the signs and symptoms, you will be able to point them out, and then you'll also be able to advocate for yourself as well. I have a client who is struggling with traumatic stress, and she's newer to my practice, and I've noticed with her that she's been misdiagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. She's been misdiagnosed with a mood disorder, misdiagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, and even misdiagnosed with psychosis in the past. And one of the things that I recognize is a limitation in my field is that a lot of people are not very knowledgeable about trauma, neither are they very knowledgeable about acute and chronic stress. So they often fit you under an umbrella term of, something else like post-traumatic stress disorder or psychosis or bipolar or depression or generalized anxiety without really considering the symptoms and being able to do a rule out or a process of elimination. So I want to talk to you a little bit about that today. I think it's going to be helpful for me to help you decipher between symptoms and help you gain some clarity. So let's go ahead and get started right now. All right, so when we're talking about traumatic stress, we're talking about the consequences or the after effects of a trauma. And a trauma, which I described in my previous video, is any event that happens to you that's disturbing, that you have no resources or internal psychological and emotional resources to cope with. So it's something that outweighs your ability to cope. And sometimes the traumatic situation doesn't trigger post-traumatic stress disorder. Most of the time it will trigger traumatic stress, and that's a lesser category of post-traumatic stress disorder. Post-traumatic stress disorder is a diagnosis, whereas traumatic stress is more symptomatic, and it tends to be either chronic or acute. Okay, so let's start with acute post-traumatic stress. Okay, acute traumatic stress often has the symptoms, and I'm going to list them over here for you, often has the symptoms of sleep disturbance, so sleeping too much or not enough, appetite disturbance, eating too much or not enough, hypervigilance, so really feeling hypervigilant and on your toes at all times, having to constantly protect yourself and guard yourself from the world, and even possibly from people that you know well. You just feel defensive and on edge, and like you're walking on eggshells with everyone because you don't trust them, or you're a little paranoid socially. And a heightened or exaggerated startle response. And what that means is that you are automatically startled. It's like the, oh my God, kind of a thing, right? And that kind of reaction occurs when you've had a traumatic situation and you're not really ready to be back with things. You're not really ready to face things and cope with things, right? So your increased or heightened startle response is a traumatic response in a sense, okay? And that can be acute or chronic. Another set of symptoms that you might recognize in acute traumatic stress would be depression, right? Anxiety. You might also find yourself having nightmares at night, or even temporarily seeing and hearing things, kind of like a brief psychosis in a sense. The good part about acute traumatic stress is that the possibility of recovery, or the prognosis, is great, right? The prognosis is great. You can recover with the right amount of therapy, possibly even medication, support, community, group therapy, you can recover. Chronic traumatic stress is just a tad different. And it's different because it's chronic, it's more pervasive, it's more long-term, and it's kind of insidious. It sneaks up on you in an acute form and then transforms into chronic. And so then that often results in what you're noticing happening within yourself. All of those symptoms I just mentioned, sleep difficulties, eat difficulties, hypervigilance, heightened startle response, depression, anxiety, nightmares, all of those things, they don't end within a certain amount of time, and they tend to increase in intensity. That's what makes it chronic and pervasive. If it doesn't get treated, which the prognosis for chronic traumatic stress is better than post-traumatic stress disorder, but it's still kind of touching the line of post-traumatic stress disorder, because if things worsen or you experience a new trauma or you don't heal from the last trauma, then post-traumatic stress disorder is likely to occur, or a longer term post-traumatic stress period. So when you think of acute and post-traumatic stress, I want you to think in terms of duration and also terms of intensity, right? So acute traumatic stress is short-term and not as intense. The prognosis is a little bit more positive, more balanced. It's more realistic recovery. Acute traumatic stress, okay, in terms of duration, can be a very long time, especially if you experience a new trauma, or your coping skills are very poor, or you've gone through, stressors that won't let up, financial, housing stressors, frequent deaths in the family, a lot of grief and loss. All of that can extend post-traumatic stress, and it can extend it so far that it then becomes post-traumatic stress disorder. All right, guys, so stay tuned for my next video, which is going to be about post-traumatic stress disorder and complex trauma. So stay tuned for that. We're going to talk about what complex trauma is, how to deal with it, what to look for, what are the symptoms, and then we're going to also bring in post-traumatic stress disorder, because I want to talk a little bit about the categories of post-traumatic stress and how to place yourself and people that you know and people that you love. And I want to make sure that these videos are short and timely so that you can get the best out of them. All right, guys, so I encourage you to give this video a thumbs up if it was helpful to you. Hit the subscribe button if you want to keep up with me over the next month or so. I'm going to be posting on this topic every week, twice a week. I post Mondays and Fridays. You might get a bonus some weeks where I post on Wednesdays, so stay tuned for that. Also, visit my blog at blogs.psychcentral.com/caregivers. I'm going to put it at the end of the video for you. I usually post articles every Wednesday about 5 a.m. So you're going to get that article, and sometimes it will correspond with the videos that I'm posting for that week as well. All right, guys, thanks so much for being with me. I enjoy all of your questions and your feedback. Keep it coming, guys. You guys are awesome, and I'll see you really, really soon. All right, bye-bye. Here, we're going to talk about the 5 after effects of trauma when something traumatic happens in your world. We're going to talk about the consequences of having to experience a traumatic situation. So I've titled it the 5 after effects of traumatic loss, grief, and situation. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about what researchers call hot system dominance. You're going to get to know what that is. It's a